because a lot of people we haven't talked about the details around it. We've talked about like the psychological hangups.
Yeah.
Like, are my friends still going to be my friends? Is society going to accept me when I come back?
Yeah.
And we haven't talked about the nitty gritty. So I want to welcome you, Seraphina Yong, to the newest episode of the How to Kick It podcast.
Hi.
Hi. I have to apologize to everybody. My plan is to do these things every week, but I've been very busy with travel and weddings and seeing family that it's been very busy, but now we have time to sit down. So yeah, Seraphina, give yourself a quick introduction so everybody can get an idea of, who you are.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks for having me. First of all, I am Singaporean. I'm from Singapore, born and raised here. And I love surfing. I'm a flight attendant. Yeah.
Short and sweet introduction. The reason that Seraphina and I are talking today is because I actually saw a TikTok of hers about doing a year abroad. And I think TikTok videos, for the most part, are 60 seconds or less. Or they're even shorter than that, like 30 seconds, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm not super well versed in the TikTok world. So anyway, it was a very short video and it was very compelling. And it got me interested enough to send her a message and say, hey, I run this little podcast. It seems like, you kind of identify with what's going on. Let's talk sometime. And you actually replied and wrote a nice message back, and here we are talking. So that's how it came to be. And just so everybody know, Seraphina is the first guest that I haven't known before doing the interview. Everybody I've met before in person, so this is my reaching out and broadening my scope and talking to new people about travel, about what it takes, and about what they get out of it. So we've talked.
Well done.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit before this, not much. And primarily, you're born and raised in Singapore, and you decided to seek out the career of being a flight attendant.
Yes.
So you worked as a flight attendant for how many years?
So I joined the airlines in 2011, and about 4 years in, I left the airlines to pursue my studies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was working on ground, meaning I had a ground job. I was doing financial sales for about 2 years. And then I came back to the airlines in 2018.
In 2018.
Till present. Yeah,
right.
2018 till present.
So did you have an interest in travel before you started working for the airlines, or is it something that kind of developed over your time, traveling around and, watching all these people go on holiday all the time?
Well, let's say growing up, wow, that's a good question. I say growing up because we all know Singapore is just a red dot on the map, right? I'm not sure if you heard about this. So I always wondered what's out there, like if Singapore, like where I grew up, I thought Singapore is pretty big, but it's actually a red dot on the map. So I always wondered what other countries are like, because the world is so big, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I wasn't traveling, or I didn't have the luxury to travel when I was a kid. So I guess I really wanted to become a flight attendant for that reason.
Right. I mean, there's not many jobs where you can get paid to travel as a career. I mean, there are some, but primarily not. So as a flight attendant, I've met a few flight attendants while traveling, and for the most part, I kind of thought it was this glamorous, really beautiful job where it's like every time you got off the airplane when you landed, you got to spend like 5 days or a week in a location, and then you get back on the plane, and then you fly back home, and then you get another few days off. But I've understood that there's times where you don't even get to stay in the country that you land in. It's like you land, you turn around, boom, and you fly right back.
Yeah, yeah.
So that has to be like a little bittersweet sometimes, yeah?
Mm-hmm. But I say, yeah, and of course when doing our layovers, we have to battle with jet lag,
Mm-hmm.
Messed up sleeping patterns and irregular meals,
Mm-hmm.
fatigue, on top of the sightseeing, shopping, and everything else that people see.
Yeah. Do you have
Yeah.
any pro tips for how to deal with jet lag?
Wow. For me, if you're tired, just sleep.
If you're tired, just
Get some
sleep.
sleep. Yeah.
Sure.
I try to get used to the local time. Stay up, and if I land in the morning in Europe, sometimes I try to fight jet lag and stay up till the evening or night over there, but it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long are layovers typically?
I'd say at least 24 hours.
At least 24 hours.
At least 24 hours.
Does that
Sometimes,
yeah, go ahead.
sometimes up to 36 or 72 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a couple of days.
I mean, 72 hours sounds like it's a good amount of time to take a nap, get on local time, explore if you're in a city, which most like
Yeah.
major airports are, and then get back on the plane and go. But 24 hours really doesn't sound like you can do too much.
Yeah, you probably get out, have a meal with your colleagues, or run some errands, and you're just back in a hotel, sleep, and then you check out the next day.
Wow.
Yeah.
They give you bonus though, right? I've heard a lot of flight attendants get discount flights or even fly for free.
Yeah, we do. We do. We do. But we do pay airport taxes. So it's not
Mm.
exactly free. Yeah. Just a
The,
couple of $100.
the government always wants its piece, you know? Yeah, that's something. It's like no matter what country you come from, it seems like, the government's always got to take its part, which,
Yeah.
it's the way of the world.
Yeah.
Um, so working as a flight attendant, getting to explore to a relatively short amount of time given these layovers, you decided to take, you said 8 months or about a year off and just
Mm-hmm.
focus on seeing the world and doing what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So a lot of times on this podcast, we talk about, what did you have to do to break free and give away all your stuff and tell your friends and family goodbye. You mentioned to me that there was a lot of planning involved with what you were doing, and I really wanted to get into the weeds of the way that you did it and what it took for you and what kind of planning steps that you did that were able to help you cultivate this 8 months year abroad.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a valid question because based off the comments from my TikTok video about me taking a career break, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of people who left comments saying, asking how they want to do it, but how do they go about doing it? And I think the first thing that comes to their mind when it comes to taking a break or sabbatical leave from work or something like that is the financial part of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, because if you're not working, there's no income. And how are you going to survive on that?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think the first thing you have to think about is to work out your monthly fixed expenses, like your bills that phone bills, groceries, basically anything that has to be spent on a monthly basis, and make sure you have at least 6 months. I think a safe guide would be to have at least 6 months of that.
Right.
Yeah. And then you worked out the rest because if it comes to other expenses like dining out with friends or your gym membership, all these can be worked out, whether you really need it or not.
Right. So when you calculated food expenses and accommodation expenses, did you target certain countries that you wanted to go to, or were you basing this off of what it costs to live in Singapore?
Oh wow. Or that when it comes to traveling and how much are we spending?
Yeah.
Okay, that would have to be based off on research. So I would find out how much it costs to rent an Airbnb,
Mm-hmm.
flight tickets, how much the food are priced there. I don't do shopping, so that's okay. And then I typically set aside about 500 to 700 Singapore dollars for each trip. Each trip,
Okay. So this is
yeah.
so when you were talking about planning for 6 months, you were just planning to take 6 months off in general, not necessarily
Uh,
planning to go anywhere. Is that what you were saying?
okay. Yeah. Okay, that's a good question as well. I actually did not plan how long my break would be.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I needed a break from burnout or whatever, but I did not intentionally set a timeline to that.
So you just kind of left it open ended.
Yes.
Obviously you didn't want to run out of all your money, but
Yeah.
you were willing to trade money for time off and
Yes,
growth, I
I was.
guess.
Yeah. Of course, there were times where I felt uncertain whether, like a few months in, when I was, oh, okay, like the past month I've been traveling, I haven't been doing anything much. Should I find a job now and start bringing in the income or blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But I say no, okay, I'm actually enjoying this. I'm not in a rush to go back to work. And looking at my savings, personal savings, I think I can afford to continue to go on for a couple of months. So I guess you have to check in with yourself time
Yeah.
to time as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I've uh, I've met a lot of people who traveled and they've done long-term travel, and some people are very honest with themselves and they
Mm.
said, "You know what? It's time to go home." Because and other people they don't want to accept that and they keep
Yeah.
pushing it and all of a sudden, they're back at home living with mom and dad,
Mm.
or living on somebody's couch just till they get
Yeah.
back on their feet, which, again, there's nothing wrong with any of those situations. I think all
Yeah.
that's amazing because we're very capable people. I think we can do anything we want to do. You bring up a really good point, though, and I think it's a really pivotal moment is when you look at your bank account and you look at the experience that you have so far, and you have to make a decision. Is it, do I
Yeah.
want to keep pushing or do I want to go back home and start getting the income? So where do you remember where you were when you would kind of check in, or like a big pivotal moment where you thought, okay, it's time to still like keep traveling for a little longer?
Um, I guess I really asked myself the question whether where I am now and where I have for the past month where I've been on my break and the experiences that I've gained, am I happy or do I want more? Do I want to go back to work? So yeah, I guess the bottom line was really asking myself if I have had a fulfilling time during my break.
Hmm.
Because obviously I've spent money on travel, doing other stuff. I took up dance classes, which
Dance
I haven't
classes.
been. Yeah, I used to do ballroom Latin
Oh
back
wow.
in school, and yeah, I didn't pursue it for personal reasons back then. And like so when I had that break, I also pursued other dreams that I've been neglected because I was busy working and all. So yeah, it wasn't just money spent on traveling. So I'm a person big on experiences,
Mm-hmm.
so I wouldn't mind putting in more money in experiences
Yeah, I think that's
than material things. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so I came to a point where okay, the past 6 to 8 months I've been doing all this, and I guess I am ready to go back to work. I filled up my own cup, and like you can't operate life in a half cup full. You get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was at that point where I was really happy. I was contented with what I've done for myself, and I was ready to. I was ready for whatever's next.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's
the
when
break served me well.
yeah, and that's when you returned to the airline, yeah? Or you went into finance for a little bit?
No, finance was before
Ah, yeah,
my
yeah.
break. So yeah, the break came after I decided to leave the financial industry.
Hmm.
Yeah, and during my break, I applied to the company to saying that I have intention to come back to the airline, and if it's available, let me know what the process is like. And they got back to me only a couple of months after that email was sent. And I guess things just fall into place really nicely. So when I was about done with my break, it was also time for me to go back for training.
Yeah.
And things just flowed smoothly.
Yeah, maintaining relationships is very important. You never want to burn a bridge professionally because you never know if you want to go back, or need a letter of recommendation or what have you.
Exactly.
Yeah, something you've brought up a few times is you kept talking about burnout,
Yeah.
and that we talk about burnout in the States quite a bit. Is
Mhm.
there something that maybe you could share your burnout story a little bit? Like, what was your burnout experience?
My burnout experience was actually a couple of things, not just about work itself. So I was doing financial sales, and as with any sales job, it comes with numbers, targets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while I was working on that, things in my personal life was a little off. And I remember that year, that was in 2017. So I went through a bad breakup, and I went through two car accidents
Wow.
in the same year. So that took a toll on my mental health. Back then, like, mental health was something new to me. I was
Mm-hmm.
still trying to grasp, and I realized I was drowning myself with work and not really prioritizing my well-being. So I didn't like. For me, after that two car accidents, I found myself waking up in the morning, preparing for work, and I would just break down, and that was when I told myself, Seraphina, this is enough. Like, you need to do something about it.
Wow.
Yeah. So um one was that I was drowning myself with work. I wasn't taking care of myself, and yeah, it just hit me. It just hit me then. So I guess I'm repeating myself now.
No, no. I mean, I love the authenticity of the story,
Yeah.
and a lot of us, we think we're invincible. We think we can go through anything, and we're the toughest person, and we don't have to show kind of some of our weaknesses, and we all have a breaking point. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you found a way to deal with yours. And I guess that was not necessarily going to travel, but it was focusing on yourself, prioritizing experiences. And it sounds like you're in a much better place now than the time of that story.
I am. Oh, and one thing that I decided that I needed a break was because, well, I was doing, because I do financial planning for families and couples, right, back
Mm-hmm.
then. And you have to be like this character of um, motivating people, to take action and start planning for their future, blah, blah, blah. But then I felt hypocritical saying that, because if I'm advising people to do that for their lives, why am I not doing it for myself?
That's 100%. That makes complete
Yeah,
sense. You want a
yeah,
financial advisor that's conservative and responsible, but also has lived their own life a bit as well.
exactly. So I felt like a hypocrite. So I think, yeah, it's time I start doing something for myself.
Good. Well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I couldn't even bring myself to, like, tell my clients, hey, this is what you have to do. But back when I'm at home, not in the office, I look back at my life and like, Serafina, what are you doing?
So obviously you reached a wall and you broke through it. What were the steps after that moment? What were the steps you took, right before you started, your time traveling, your time abroad?
Um, wow, I think the first month felt great because I used to live a life where I had my calendars filled with appointments, meeting people, almost every day, almost every other day. And when I started the break, my calendar was empty, and it felt really good. Felt really good. Can't recall can't recall what I've been doing, but I think just basically some days I even do nothing. I'm just at home, um, cleaning up my place. Nothing really in what the world would say productive. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Sometimes it's okay to not do anything.
yeah, and I mean, I don't even remember if it's some Buddhist saying, but it's like the act of doing nothing is one of the most important acts that can be. You can interpret that any way you want to.
Yeah.
What I think I relate it to, and I think you'll also agree with this, is like you said, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
If you don't take time for yourself, even if it's just moments of doing nothing and recharging, you're not going to be good to anybody. You're not going to be good to your friends, your family, your work. It's what's the point if you're not operating at an optimal level? So yeah, I think it's good to identify that and then obviously do what needs to be done to recharge and then be the best you can be. I wanna talk a little bit more about your actual travel and where you've gone. I know you were in Bali surfing for a period of time, but that's kind of the only place that comes to mind right now. Tell me a little bit about your travel trail for that time.
I've been to okay, so I decided to travel within Southeast Asia. So I went to Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia.
Hmm.
Yeah, because why these places? Because when I was flying as a flight attendant, we don't have layovers in these countries. It's just a turnaround flight.
Because it's so close
Yeah, and it's cheaper to get plane tickets and to live there for a bit.
compared to Singapore.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Because I like if I travel to US and all, like I mean, it would definitely cost more in terms of expenses, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
America can be very, very
Europe,
expensive.
right? Australia, New Zealand, yeah.
Yeah.
So
The thing about
and it
America,
doesn't make sense if I'm like from Singapore, but I haven't traveled or explored to the neighboring countries.
yeah. I mean, I've seen more of the world than I have of the United States. I've only been to this most recent trip. I just went to four new states that I'd never been to. I went to Michigan,
Whereabouts?
yeah, Michigan, Missouri, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. I had never been to any of those places before. Um,
Right.
and I mean, it was cool, and I obviously it changed my opinion of those places completely. I had a very simple perspective of them. But I've been to like 30 some countries out of the United States, and I haven't even been to 10 states. So it's kind of funny what interests you and what motivates you, and I think exploring your own backyard, like you said, Singapore's so small.
Yeah.
Even going to Thailand, it can be like there's some very drastic differences between cost and culture and just
Oh,
the
there
aesthetics
is.
of the city. I mean, Singapore city centers is so clean and so modern in the city center, but you get outside a little bit. There's some really, I don't know what you want to call it, a little more traditional or a little more what you would expect out of Southeast Asia, like some of the places you can get food.
Yeah.
Um, I had some of the best food in Singapore and also the most diverse option. I could have like any Southeast Asian food I wanted in Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was, yeah, I want to go back. I will go back. It's a great place for a layover, probably not during COVID, but when things
Yeah.
lift, it'll be a bit better.
Mm.
Okay, so Thailand. So what did you do in Thailand? Did you fly into Bangkok or how did you go ahead and enter the country?
I Let me think about it. I went to Thailand twice. One with a friend, a girlfriend, and the other one was with my dad.
Ah,
I particularly enjoyed the one with my dad because wow, I think it's probably the first time I traveled with him as an adult.
it changes the dynamic a little bit, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Because now that I'm an adult and I enjoy doing the planning, booking accommodation, finding out places to go, where to eat, booking flight tickets. I literally planned everything. So I just told my dad, like, hey, do you want to come along? And he was very sporting, and he took leave, and he joined me on the trip.
Nice.
And we went to Chiang Mai. So we took a flight to Bangkok. We had a night there, and then we took a domestic flight to Chiang Mai. Yeah, so we spent about a week in Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai. Got a driver, he drove us around.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah.
Sounds nice.
Yeah.
I actually, I think I did part of that Chiang Mai to Chiang Rai via scooter and motorcycle when I was in Thailand back in the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you like it there?
Yeah, I had a really nice time there. Chiang Mai was really interesting city with the little old city in the center and then the modern city surrounding it. I drove, I think it's about 3 hours northwest to Pai. I don't know if you heard of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a super cute little village in this mountain valley, and honestly, it just felt like the rest of the world didn't exist while you were there, just because it was so nestled in the kind of topography of the landscape. Yeah, but Thailand in general, I've said it on this podcast many times. It's an excellent entry level country if you want to travel and you've never done it before. It's like the best place to go because it's easy and they've been having tourists come forever and they do if you want them to do something for you, they have it. They can put you on a bus, on a train, on a plane. They can get you anything you want, and it's just very user friendly. And I think it really like empowers people when they go there. They're like, "Wow, I can do this. I can travel the world." Like, and yeah, it's true. Other countries, it's not so easy, but Thailand it's great. It's a great beginner country, in my opinion.
Yeah, and people there are so hospitable.
So nice, so friendly.
Yeah.
Everybody can cook. The best food. I don't understand it. It's crazy.
Oh, I love Thai food.
Thai food's so good. In America, I just like nobody. It's not nobody can cook, but it's different when you go somewhere and everybody can cook. It's just such a different culture.
Thai food in America and Thai food in Thailand is different.
Oh yeah, can't compare the two. You also said you spent some time in Vietnam. What was that like?
Vietnam. Oh, I went with another girlfriend. We went to Sapa. We traveled from Hanoi to Sapa Valley. Sapa Valley is up north. So it took us about a day of traveling from Singapore to our final destination at Sapa Valley. And then we spent about 4 to 5 days there.
Nice.
Trekking and just enjoying the place.
Were you able to see China from Sapa?
Oh no.
You weren't that close?
No, we didn't.
I hear you can get that close. I haven't been to Sapa personally, but I hear when you go, you can get like close enough to see China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a hiking trip that does that. Yeah.
What did you think about the Vietnamese culture and the people? Obviously, you weren't there for a long, long time, but you got exposed to some of it.
Right where we were. So I think on the second day of the trip, we did a trek with this because there are different tribes in Sapa Valley, right? And these treks are conducted by women. And at the end of the trek, you could actually sometimes they invite you to their homes, or you could actually ask. Like during the trek, you probably would have built rapport relationship with them, and so our trek, she invited us to her home, and we went. She prepared us dinner, so we had dinner together with her family, her children, her grandchildren, and I think it was the most humbling experience being in her house because it's nothing like where where we came from in the city. Living in a city, we get, nice, clean environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I remember it was one of the most humbling experience I've ever felt
Wow.
to be there. Oh,
I've
it makes me emotional now.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's a very like intense image when you speak about it. I can visualize it. I can like see you guys there with the family.
Yeah,
And it's just such a different day-to-day environment because you're just visiting, you're just peeking in to what this woman's reality is, what her everyday life is. And
exactly.
she's there with her family every day, and every once in a while she'll guide a trek in the area and maybe even welcome somebody into their home. Yeah, that's really nice. I don't know many situations in the U.S. where you could do something like that, where somebody's welcome in your home. We have like international student programs, but that's the only thing I can really think of, and it's obviously very different than that.
Mm.
I spent about a month in Vietnam traveling from the south to the north, and just some of the most generous, kind people that I had ever had the privilege of spending time with. And obviously, like I'm a white guy from America, and people think I have money, so maybe that's why they're nice to me. But that's not really the experience I felt. I was in
Mm.
areas where like people didn't speak any English, and we somehow found a way to communicate. And it just, I don't know, everybody just was very kind and generous with their time. And I think that's like the most valuable thing you can give somebody is your time.
It is.
Yeah. So yeah, Vietnam, what a place. And the not the last place, obviously. There's probably many more places on your list, but the last place I want to talk to you about is your time in Bali and in Indonesia.
Wow,
Yeah,
Bali. I
yeah.
miss Bali.
So
I
I lived out there I lived out there for maybe a year in, I can't even remember, 2018, 2019,
Yeah.
and have just been working on a way to get back. I've been back 2 months ago for a business dealing, and now I'll be moving out to Indonesia within the month or 2 months, depending on how the borders open up. But that was also an aspect of when your Instagram or your TikTok caught my eye. I saw that you
Yeah.
spent some time in Bali, so I really wanted to touch base on what your experience was like there, because everybody has a different experience. So I'm always curious to
Yeah.
hear the new ones.
Okay, when it comes to Bali, I I went to Bali in 2019, just like yourself, but
Hmm.
to surf, to pick up surfing. So I traveled to Bali alone. I looked up for a surf camp,
Oh,
and then I just went there for like I think 4 or 5 days.
and you
That
didn't.
was in June 2019. Yeah, my first surf trip, and since then I would go back to Bali like every other month just to surf.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Were you always going back to the surf camp, or had you made some connections and just surfed on your
Um,
own?
so the first camp that I went was Russian owned. It was in Canggu, and we basically surf only in the morning, and then we have the rest of the day to ourselves.
Hmm.
Right. So I think each morning surf was about 2 hours. Yeah, and the second time I figured that I wanted to surf more. So I figured that like one morning session is not enough for me. So I sought for other surf camp, and then the second time I went back, I went to a German owned surf camp. It's called Surf WG, and I
Mm,
really like it there. So we surf in the morning, we came back to camp for breakfast, rest, and then we would be out by noon again, about 2 p.m.
nice.
So we get to surf twice a day, and I just I love it. So I went back there for like three times, three other trips.
When you go, how long do you typically stay?
Wow, because I was also flying back then, and the maximum I would have after a state's flight would be 3 days before I fly off again. So
Mm.
I would max out my days off. I would touch down in Singapore. I take a nap, and then I would fly out to Bali, and yeah, I'll just come back before my next flight. So I was flying in and out a lot
It's a super short
then.
flight. It's like, what is it, like 3 hours?
2 hours.
2 hours.
Singapore to Bali, 2 hours. Yeah,
Piece of
and
cake. Easy
huh?
flight. I said, piece of cake,
Yeah,
easy flight.
exactly. And I was using staff travel ticket, so I'm not. Yeah, I'm not complaining.
Nice. So,
Yeah.
I mean, were you captivated by Bali? Did you just really want to learn how to surf? What was the biggest pull for you to keep going back time and time again?
Well, I would say surfing was probably the number one reason,
Hmm.
but accompanying that would be, like you say, I guess the culture in Bali, the people. I made lots of friends there, not just the locals, but people in a surf camp of different nationalities. And till today, we're still in touch because some of them are kind of like stuck in Bali, right? And the surf guides, I actually made one of the surf guides and I became really close. Like he even took me out on a surf trip out of what the surf camp was providing. So we went to West Bali and he gave me one-on-one lesson. And that's where my I think I really improved a lot on surfing because when you go for a surf lesson with in a group, there's not much attention given to you one on one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
tough sometimes. There's, different camps offer different types of instruction, but yeah, when you're in a
yeah,
big group, you don't always get the best one-on-one.
yeah.
Um, so I'm a big surfer. I wouldn't say I'm a good surfer. I surf a lot. I've got to surf a lot the last 4 years now. I feel very lucky. And I'm always so impressed with where people get their motivation for surfing and travel and watching the
Mm,
two worlds really marry each other. And so many times I've talked to people about, like, hey, when did you really start getting into travel and when did you really start getting into surfing? And usually
mm,
they tell me it's the same story. And it's usually they went to a surf camp, whether it be in Bali or South America or somewhere else. And it's just kind of funny that those environments just inspire people. And you talk about how you prioritize experiences and
yeah,
what an experience it is to not just already know how to surf, but for you to go into this thing that seems basically impossible. I think when most people start, they're like, how am I ever going to learn how to do this? And then they start to have success and it becomes addicting. And then they start
mm.
flying to Bali every few weeks from Singapore just to go on surf trip. Like it's it's
Yeah.
it's for whatever reason those types of stories really really speak to me. So I really want to thank you for sharing that one. Now that you've kind of returned to regular life, what were the biggest hurdles or what were the most difficult moments for you going back to a traditional work schedule? Were there any kind of sticking points for you?
Mm, well, I mean, I went back to fly, so no, there wasn't. Okay, let me put my thoughts together.
I mean, it's okay. I mean, that's a good thing. If there was nothing hard about going back, then I think that's great.
Was
If you want to take the question on a little different angle, I can also kind of say like, you were talking about kind of being burned out. Do you feel like you kind of fixed your burnout? Did you come back feeling, recharged and ready to get back to it?
Oh yeah, I definitely did. And I
Yeah.
guess okay, yeah, that's a good question. I guess with all my travels and I mean during my break and my experiences based off my job back then when I was doing financial sales, like everything combined, then when I went back to the airlines, I felt I felt refreshed. I was energized and I was also tapping on the experiences I have gained over the past few years. And I felt like I was a better and more confident crew at work. Does that make sense? Yeah, because before, especially working in business class, before I left the airline, I felt intimidated speaking with people or passengers with statuses. Yeah. So now that I'm back flying and with the experiences I've gained, I've met people from different walks of life, different nationalities. I felt like I've overcome that. And it was easy to build rapport and have like quality conversation with passengers like that, because I have the mindset now, you come on board, you are my passenger, I'm your host, I'm here to take care of you. And I guess there was a mindset shift, and it in turn led to a change in behavior to how I carry myself and also interact with my passengers.
Do you think that carries over into your personal life as well, not just with your passengers?
Yeah, it does. I feel like I have more to bring to a table, having conversations with people, sharing experiences and life, not just like I actually have done all these things. So it wasn't just me talking for nothing. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think when you talk to somebody who hasn't necessarily spent a lot of time abroad, and maybe you're encouraging them and say like, oh, you're going to grow and you're going to learn about yourself, and you're not going to change, but you're going to, find out maybe who you are a little bit. People kind of laugh it off, and sometimes they don't take you too seriously. But then for the few people that actually do it themselves, they come back and they're like, wow, I feel like more of myself. I feel like who I was supposed to be. And it's, again, I think travel helps. I think experiences help. But I think the number one thing that I've learned through doing some of these podcasts is just you really got to take time for yourself.
Yeah.
And the journey never stops, Like,
Yeah, it doesn't.
no,
It doesn't.
I think you're great. I think I'm great, but I think we all can be better, So we got to continue and work hard in every aspect of our lives and continue to grow, and hopefully, the main purpose of these podcasts is to help individuals who are having kind of sticking points and not sure what they want to do, and maybe travel and experiences can be something that helps them. And I think the more and more people we talk to, the more and more we paint a really good picture that this kind of experience or lifestyle can suit just about anybody from, any walk of life.
Yeah. What was the best thing, your best takeaway when it comes to traveling?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a really good question.
Am I the first person who asked you a question on a podcast?
No, yeah, I mean, a lot of people like talking about themselves. I don't mean to criticize any of my other guests, but no, I think I have a tendency to guide the conversation and make sure to ask them a question. But what was my biggest takeaway from travel? Man, take advantage of your youth while you still got it. And I want all my friends in their 30s and 40s to realize that you guys are still young. You're still super young. And in all my friends in their 20s, you're also still very young. But I guess my concern was that, like, when I started my travels, I was like, oh, I'm like in my late 20s, and I don't know, everybody who's doing this is in their early 20s, and maybe I'm going to miss out on my career, and I think it's time to buy a house and start a family. And you got plenty of time for all that stuff. What you don't have time for, though, is enjoying your youth and being naive and getting away with kind of being dumb or ignorant about certain things because you're young. As you get older, people start kind of having a higher accountability of you. There's more responsibilities. So yeah, man, take advantage of your youth, because no matter how much money you make in the world, you'll never be able to buy that back. So that's my biggest takeaway. Yeah.
I would agree with you, definitely.
But also the fact that I still think the definition of youth is broader than what most people think it is. You know, it's not just 18 to 25. That's not youth. You know, as long as your legs work and you're optimistic and you're healthy and excited about life, then, you
Yeah,
know, then you're still young.
it's a state of mind.
Exactly. All right, Seraphina, this has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for being the first guest that I didn't know beforehand. I hope to see you in Bali. I hope to see you at my surf camp one day in Lombok.
We will.
Yeah, and also hopefully we can pay you a visit in Singapore when everything opens up. But yeah, guys, thanks for listening and take care.